All right, let's start with this. So there has been some, and, we hear about how sometimes there's a narrative when it comes to teams that are not the Blue Bloods. But if they play. Here's one, there has been a few, there have been comments, and there's been like, whoa, who has Texas beaten? Actually, if you look inside the top 25 or whatever, nobody. But this is a good point by CJ. It's probably the only time in a 140-year history of the sport, college football, where a schedule of Michigan, Georgia, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Florida, and Texas A&M, and no FCS teams as a non-conference game, is being widely considered, I don't know about widely, but considered as the easiest schedule of the season. Well, it is based on who those teams were this year or who they have been this year, and the one game Georgia is the one they lost at home. Florida and Arkansas have not been all that really relevant in the last, 8 to 10 years or so, but they still have been teams that have had some success. Does this in any way kind of neuter anything? Well, they haven't played anybody. Or haven't beaten anybody.
Look, there's two. They haven't played anybody or beaten anybody, and then they haven't scheduled anybody. This is not Texas's fault. The fact that Michigan had a tremendous drop-off, Georgia's still good, but Oklahoma's not good, Arkansas's average, Florida's average, A&M's good, but the fact that three of those 6 teams are average at best is not Texas's fault. That's those teams' fault. I do think that, maybe you need to weigh that when it comes to seeding, but outside of Georgia, they've beaten everybody who's in front of them, right? So, maybe you lower their seed, but I don't think it's a fair argument in this case against Texas. Now, if you look at other teams who avoid scheduling like Texas does and who aren't in the conference like the SEC, then I do think that you need to take maybe that into consideration, but this is not Texas's fault.
Yeah, I don't know. They're ranked the number 3 team in the country, so who cares? Who cares what, Aggie fan 24 on Twitter is saying, I guess, about the schedule, but I guess, there's been a lot of talk about it, and I don't know. I don't think it's really been, I guess maybe in Texas circles it's been a big deal, but to me, we've all acknowledged that UT's schedule compared to Oklahoma's was relatively light on paper to begin with, right? They got the easier draw of the 2 teams on paper. I think that's probably bore out. I haven't gone back to really compare it because I haven't really spent a lot of time thinking about Texas' schedule. I do think it hasn't been as daunting as it initially looked on paper because Michigan is nowhere near the team that you thought they were going to be. They were preseason top 10 guys.
I know.
When Texas played them. They are a absolute dumpster fire at the moment and not really a team that many people are spending too much time on. They're going to probably go to a bowl game, but, outside of that, it's not really a season worth talking about. So that game didn't turn out to be as much of a big deal as you'd expect it to be. The Oklahoma game obviously was not even a close contest whatsoever. Then they had the close call with Georgia, which, was their biggest test and the test that they didn't pass. So Vandy's a better game than was expected to be, so that's actually been a boost. But, when you're destroying people and when nobody's really giving you a run for your money, it's made to look pretty easy, and they've had a couple of close calls this entire year, and that's it. And they've come in the last couple of weeks, or the last 3 weeks. So I just think people are kind of ready to see Texas get tested. The thing that's jumped out to me is how all these teams joined, and we kind of saw the foreshadowing for this, but while we've had these weekends with big games, there's a lot of schedules you look at and go damn, they play 2 teams the entire year, Indiana or Texas, or I think you can give other examples. Penn's, there's just, I don't know. It just feels like there's a couple big games for everybody. And I guess it's always sort of been that way, but especially in this playoff era and everybody, these super conferences, it's actually, are we playing less good teams throughout the schedule because the conferences are bigger? So you're not running into each other as much? That's kind of how it feels to me, at least, because I am waiting for every week to be this challenge, and it's not necessarily panned out that way.
Well, I think that there have been some great weekends of college football, but at the same time, you might be right because it's watered down in a little bit. Some teams get the algorithm that helps them, and some of them not. I'm not, and I never have really looked at this year with Texas. The one team they played that this year is really good, Georgia beat them in Austin, but the other, that's not their fault. In fact, when that schedule came out, I think a lot of people looked at Florida's schedule. A lot of people looked at Oklahoma's schedule. And I saw our good friend Kelly Ratings, and he actually said when the schedules all came out, everybody thought Florida had the most difficult schedule. And it still has been really difficult. But based on where are people now and who they have been this year, Oklahoma's schedule is now ranked as the most difficult, and it was among the most difficult in the first place. So there we are. Listen, one thing I know about UT, and there's a lot of people that either love them or you hate them or you're annoyed by them or whatever. They are not afraid to put together a non-conference schedule. They always want to try to have one or two people who are schools from Texas. Whether that changes in the future, that includes former Big 12 brethren, I don't know. They always are going to play a high-level team, whether it's Notre Dame or if it's Tennessee or if it's LSU or whoever, in this case Michigan, Alabama the last couple of years. And on top of that, they're usually going to play Oklahoma as a non-conference game. Well, that's now a conference game. Their non-conference schedule is going to have a UTSA or someone else like that from Texas. They have never been afraid to have a very nice non-conference schedule. It's not their fault that Michigan did not hold up their end of the bargain. All right, so there we are with that. Now, here's a Brett McMurphy note. Brett McMurphy with this one here today. Since 1992, since the first Bowl Coalition title game, national champion and the title game loser, in other words, the two finalists, have never both the following year finished 500 or worse. Michigan and Washington are now 5-5. Michigan closes against Northwestern and then at Ohio State. Washington plays UCLA and then at Oregon. So it looks like they're going to both, you would think that both of them are going to go 1-1 and finish at 6-6.
Yeah, that's how it looks. I mean,
although that's not a guarantee with Washington because UCLA's playing pretty well, not just because they beat Nebraska. They have been playing a lot better.
Share your trauma, Smokey. It's okay.
It's there. It's going to always be there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's likely that they're both going to be 6-6. And look, Michigan, I'll tell you this. I'm very impressed that Sharon Moore, without a quarterback, is able to win 6 games. That's how talented that defense was and some of the other players because it's been I don't know if there's anything worse in space than a black hole that you can go into, but it's been worse than that at quarterback for Michigan. So yeah, they're going to probably wind up 6-6 and do that same with Washington. But Washington, it shouldn't be too surprised when the coaching staff's all gone, the entire roster's all gone. Michigan, half the coaching staff is gone. J.J. McCarthy's gone. A couple of key other players are gone. So it shouldn't be that surprising that they're not that good. For Michigan, it's very surprising to me that they don't have it. They didn't, that they thought any of these 3 quarterbacks were going to rise to the level of being competitive in the Big Ten and didn't get in the portal and at least get somebody that was better.
Yeah, well, they're going to do that. That's a story we're going to have in a minute, Craig. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll go straight to that. We'll have that story about Michigan and a possible quarterback in a minute. So Dave Aranda and Baylor will play in Morgantown. They're 0-6 there. It has now become, I don't say modern day, because the series only began back in 2000 and I think 10. But Baylor's 0-6 there, and they've had 70-63. They've also had a chance when they were up right before halftime. It looked like they were playing about as well as they could, and Blake Shapen had a ball get loose as he was moving out of the pocket, and a scoop and score West Virginia. They went on to win. But that's been a tough place for them to win. Also, despite whatever was at 2-4, Baylor mathematically, along with a lot of teams in the Big 12, is not out of it. Now, eventually, things happen with wins and losses among others that might just knock you out of it. They aren't going to play for the Big 12 title, and you can record that and play it back if that ever miracle happens this year. But here's Dave Aranda when he was asked about whether or not he even brings that up, not just a bowl possibility where they need to win one more game out of 3, but also the fact that they're still mathematically not eliminated from a Big 12 championship game.
Look at the Big 12, and it's just, massive teams kind of fighting for everybody's still alive. Is that a positive? Do you talk to the team about that, where it's like, things fall our way, we could still achieve some really big things? How much do you discuss that with the team?
Not a lot. The mountains and the stairs and all that. To maybe some dismay. I still show that, and it's like, this is the step we got to take, right? And so consistency for us, right, regardless of praise or criticism, right, our effort and our attention to detail is the same, right? And it's a level of mastery we're trying to get to, and regardless of kind of the circumstance or the point in the game and any of those things is what we're trying to get to. I think to kind of do stuff, to kind of show people stuff, I think that's one level of all of it. But to do it, whether it's, raining or sun shining or storming or whatever, is a whole other one. And so we're trying to get to that phase of it. At the weak feel, throughout these last couple of weeks with the wins have been just kind of businesslike, kind of focused. I felt that today too, coming back, and sometimes in the past, coming off a bye when you've been out for a couple of days, to kind of be back, you don't have that feeling, but it was very much that feeling. So it feels good.
All right, that's Dave Aranda when asked on Monday at his media session about that they're mathematically not out of it, but there's a bunch of teams that are not mathematically out of it, which makes the conference kind of fun. Do you feel like, Paul, that is even something you should bring up? Craig, the bowl game, I think players aren't dumb. They know you got to get to 6 because they surely know they didn't get close to that last year.
No, I don't think you need to talk about the Big 12 championship game until you're standing there in week 12 going, oh, okay, or the 12th game going, okay, if we win this one, then we've got a shot. Their shot is outside right now, so. Yeah, they're still alive for it, and the Big 12 keeps putting that out, and that's fine. But realistically, there's 4 teams that have a shot at it, not 12.
I think you probably take it one game at a time, but I'm not a coach, and I don't know that locker room or that team like he does. So if it's a team that's able to handle that kind of thing well, then, yeah, you put it in front of them. If they're not, they get overwhelmed by expectations like last year's team that folded like a wet napkin whenever you'd start to build up a game, then you probably don't bring it up to that team. But this one seems like they've been able to handle the pressure type stuff pretty well going on the road. They talk about streaks and haven't beat this team in this long and things like that. That last year's team probably just withers under. This year's team has embraced it and liked that challenge. So I think, again, it probably depends on just how you see that locker room. Are they motivated by those things, or do they get overwhelmed by those things? And even though I think this team is motivated by those things, he knows better. So they've been taking it 1 week at a time. That seems to have worked well for them. And I mean, the thing is if you win this week, then you have better chances possibly. And then you win the week after that, and you just kind of see where it falls. But I don't think you put too much emphasis on it because, like Paul said, it's a very outside shot at this point in time. But I don't know, if he feels like it gives him a little extra gas in their tank, then go for it. Only he really knows how his team responds to those things.
Yeah, you're right about last year's team, or even near the end of the 2022 season. Every time you thought they were going to kind of get over that nudge over the top, because they were 5-2, ended up 6-7. It was a disaster down the stretch.
But they have to get bowl eligible. I mean, that is obviously the number one thing. You have 3 games to win 1. And if you don't do that, then all the goodwill you built up the last 3 weeks, the last month actually, 3 wins and a bye week, and a really interesting combination of having beaten a rival in Texas Tech at their place convincingly, having beat a rival in TCU who you never beat at your place, and to beat them in walk-off fashion, which you never seemingly do, and to beat Oklahoma State, who's given you plenty of problems in the regular season. To do that 3 consecutive games, I don't care what shape those teams were in. And in the case of 2 of the 3, they're actually in similar shape. Only Oklahoma State's down more than normal. I think that was a remarkable little run, knowing Baylor's history. But if you don't make a bowl game, then that's a fun little moment to look back on, but you briefly talk about it rather than really dwell on it, because it ultimately didn't mean anything. It meant like a fun little stretch, but it didn't amount to anything. So they've got to ensure that those wins mean something, and that means going and winning at least a game in the next 3. I think as much of a house of horrors as Morgantown has been, that if you were going to go pop West Virginia right now, much like winning in Stillwater, now's the time to do it, because there's a combination of fan negativity and uncertainty. It's not like they're rolling and everybody's like Morgantown's just jam-packed and ready to rock on for Neil Brown. It's like quite the opposite. even though they know there's still things out there for them to win. But they're vulnerable is my point, and I think you can go out there and get them if you play the way you played over the last month. So I'm very intrigued by Saturday, and if they win Saturday, then talk about a hell of a run for Dave Aranda that would really shut up quite a few people, I would think, because he'd have done a lot of things in a short amount of time that they'd never done or haven't done in a really long time.
It'd be a hell of a surge towards the end of the year. And West Virginia's trying to create their own because, remember now, they've won a couple of games in a row themselves.
They're just in a weird spot, though. Like, it's like, yay, we won, but we still want the head coach fired. You know what I mean? And that's not everybody in that fan base, but that's a lot of people in that fan base. And so I just think it's a weird situation they're in where it's like probably the people who, when Baylor started winning a couple games, they're like, hell yeah, oh wait, but we want Aranda fired. So what do we do here? What do we cheer or do we get mad? I think that's the same thing for West Virginia fans that wanted Neil Brown gone. It's like, oh, we won. Oh, damn, does that actually help him? So go take advantage of that kind of puzzling atmosphere.
Yeah, this is a name of the thread that, at least as last I looked, I just put it up on my website, on my laptop. First topic underneath those that are pinned at the top, which are usually columns and videos and whatever else. Do you think Aranda has already earned another year? And, of course, there's like 5,000 people that have read it and 180 or so who have commented on it, and it goes in different directions. If they were to lose the last three, all bets are off. All bets are off. There's even thoughts that if they don't win two of the last three, that might not be enough. But
I think that's ridiculous.
I do too.
I think it's ridiculous.
If they get to a bowl game after being 2-4 with wins against Texas Tech on the road and then getting the rival finally in TCU at home is a big deal. So I don't know who they're going to beat the last 3 weeks. All of them seem like they could win or lose those games, like a lot of games that we have remaining in the Big 12 among various teams.
Well, West Virginia or Baylor are getting bowl eligible, and that's going to be a big deal for both coaches. They're the two that came in on the hottest of seats in the entire league. Really the only two that were on hot seats entering this season. Everybody else was like new or new enough that it didn't really matter, even though Brent Brennan's challenging that entire theory apparently. But, those two are still kind of in that weird no man's land in terms of really knowing what their future holds. And whoever wins this weekend is going to get a 6th win, and for West Virginia, that would be 3 in a row. Mm-hmm. For Baylor, that'd be 4 in a row. Yeah. So somebody's going to be like riding red hot off this weekend, even if it doesn't necessarily feel that way overall. That's what's the reality. That's what the reality will be. Is somebody will be on a really good streak and be heading to the postseason. So that's a big game for both teams.
Yeah, it is. And look, if there's still people out there holding out hope that Dave Aranda's going to get fired, I would go ahead and at least put it in a box to put away on a shelf for a little while, because if, and barring a tremendous collapse and losing these last 3, I just don't see that happening. And I don't see the way they're playing them losing these last 3. Now, do they go 2-1? Yeah, okay. Do they go 1-2? Maybe. I just don't see them going 0-3.
I agree. We all are asked by Levi to predict the upcoming games, and all of us have put our predictions in, and they'll put that up on the site sometime tomorrow morning. But I don't know of any game that's a gimme. But I also don't know any of the games that they should not have a good chance to win if they play how they have played in the last 3 weeks to get themselves above 500 after 2-4. Tennessee quarterback concussion. This has been a story for quite a bit of this week. Listed as questionable. That's the last I saw. That was late yesterday evening. Brandon Marcello saying that this can change today. This could change by the end of the day. Could change by Saturday. But Tennessee and Georgia playing this weekend. And how much of a break would that be for Georgia if Nico's not available for that game? And can Tennessee win that game without him?
I think they can, because their defense is good. They can run the ball. Look, I know Jackson Dart was playing for Ole Miss, but a lot of people weren't, and they still beat Georgia. So I think they can. I wouldn't pick them to, but I think they can, although I think Nico makes a huge difference in the game. If he can't go, then things should be different. But they still have Dylan Sampson. They still have some good wide receivers. And their defense is really excellent. And if Carson Beck keeps turning the ball over or playing as uneven as he is, then, yeah, they've got a chance for sure.
Nico who?
Amalieva.
That's your slick. Nico. Yeah, no, I don't do the
Oh,
same
the
thing.
Tennessee quarterback.
I got the Navy coach.
Yeah.
Now
no,
it's
but
San Jose State.
I had to call it out. I'm sorry, but I just know that Iamaleava, he's a tough one to just rattle off for sure. For me too. I have to sit there but I know Nico.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
And I did not have time today. Now, I nailed Ken, but I
Ken
did
who?
not.
Nia
Mia
Matalolo.
Matalolo. I knew that. But I did not have chance because I've been running around crazy today, and I did not chance to listen to it and also write it out phonetically. But Nico,
Iamaleava.
yeah, him. And he may not play against Georgia on Saturday.
Well, yeah, that'd obviously be a big deal. He hasn't just set the world on fire like you predicted when you started hearing about the money he was making as a high school prospect. But he's been solid, and they're obviously a very good team and a team that's right there in the thick of the CFP, and this is a huge, massive game. So, yeah, that's big that, his status is even, being a question. But I think that Tennessee and Josh Heupel have had a really good run, and obviously going to have some big things to say down the stretch. And with Georgia, like, they can't afford another loss. Like, as much as you're already getting that, well, a 3-loss SEC team, like if Georgia, loses another game, I think that's pretty much it for them. It has to be, right? I mean, there's no way to spin. Well, I know it's 3 losses, but
If anybody has a conscience, if they have a conscience, they have to realize that 3 losses, no matter who they're against or whoever you've beaten, has to pretty much take you out of the equation.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's about the wins, how many games you win, no matter the games that you lose.
Yeah, so to me, that's an elimination game for Georgia. And then for Tennessee, it would put them, if they were to lose, on that line as well, where they would have no room for error either with a second loss. So, we don't quite know how the 2 and 3 losses are going to be viewed, but we already know that Heather Dinich and the committee are greasing everybody up for a 3-loss SEC team. So be prepared for that possibility. But this one right here would seemingly be an elimination-style game, most likely.
And, yes, they beat Texas, who may be the best team in the country. We don't know, and they beat them on the road. But they have not looked. Man, if you want to talk about Ward Manuel's eye test, yeah, Georgia has the eye test. But there's something missing with what they're doing on offense, from their quarterback to everything else. By the way, I actually, because I think I sent out that tweet yesterday evening, I have it phonetically spelled on this piece of paper, and I just panicked. Iamaleava.
Yeah.
I had it. I just panicked. I got to admit that.
But it's all right.
What?
Iamaleava.
Iamaleava.
Oh, okay, well, that's why I didn't read. That's why I didn't.
I'm glad you did that.
Michigan is prepared to offer Garrett Ross's Go Tigers commit, Bryce Underwood. And this is a report from the Wolverine on 3. This covers Michigan. I don't know if these numbers are ever true because we don't know. But offering him what is reported to be $10.5 million over 4 years. I would think that Dave Portnoy is probably in the middle of this too, because remember what he has said.
No, he definitely is.
Okay, all right, $10.5 million. Garrett, do you believe that?
I believe the offer's out there. I also believe that LSU has been waiting for this and that they have a little stash money themselves for a counter, personally. That's what the word is in Baton Rouge.
Really?
Yes.
You're an insider.
They taking that from the womenmen's basketball pool?
Is that
what
from
they're
No,
getting
it's
that
not the
from?
women's basketball.
Is that
That's
from
a
the
little separate.
casinos near the Mississippi River?
That's from Sunny Ship at Go
Okay.
247.
All right, well, I'm sure LSU has money too now.
Now, look, this is going to test the Brian Kelly, we don't get in bidding wars comment that he made.
That's what happens when your feet are suddenly to the fire.
Yeah. No. Like he just said, look, we don't go to bidding wars. We're LSU, blah, blah, blah. Then all of a sudden, Bryce Underwood gets offered almost $11 million.
Whoa.
And then he's going to go to that collective. And he's like, hey, listen, I don't care what accent I have to speak in or how many stupid pictures I'm going to take. I'll do whatever you need, but we cannot let this guy go to Michigan. Do we have a media mogul here who can, go toe-to-toe with Portnoy?
I got a feeling there's plenty of money, plenty of cash. A lot of it that's probably unreported cash in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
Or Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Louisiana.
It doesn't have to be underreported, though.
No,
that's
not
the
anymore.
thing. It's
No.
like why hide it? You can just go and throw it out there, and clearly people are throwing out numbers. That's where this whole report comes from. So that's coming from somebody, whether people attached to the schools are the Underwood family. So, yeah, I mean, that's the era that we live in. I don't know how we went from $100 handshakes to $10.5 million over 4 years so quickly, but I kind of have an idea because it was the NCAA just sitting on their hands for 3 decades doing nothing, 4 or 5 decades maybe even. But, yeah, that's where we are now. So I'm sort of taken aback when I see that number, but for a millisecond, because we already did this with Nico with the $7 million.
Maliava.
No, we did this, though, with him, a year ago, right? Or was that 2 years ago at this point? So those high tags were already kind of being bandied about. It's only going to go higher like everything else. And so there will be somebody named, Jimmy Smith in a couple years who's getting $15 million offered by USC or something. I mean, that's what we're ramping up towards. And ultimately, maybe these all become professional contracts that get reported in whatever the new era looks like, in the next 5 to 10 years. But it is weird to kind of see that, and yet not surprising at all. And if you tell me that's the going rate for a quarterback these days, I'm inclined to believe you because I don't know otherwise, and that sounds like it's probably pretty reasonable for 4 years, even though a guy like this, you're probably not expecting he's going to see the length of this contract. The whole point is he probably won't be there for 4 years, but you hope you get the bang for your buck.
Yeah, I think there's going to be an NFL quarterback that wants to enter the transfer portal, go back and play college football.
Why do you think Diego Pavia is trying to get another year?
Yeah.
It's not because he's trying to improve for the NFL, of which he will not be a member most likely. It's because he sees the money he can make in college, and he knows that he's not going to make anywhere close after he runs out of eligibility. So, yeah, he got to the SEC all of a sudden, started beating Alabama. He's like, oh, damn, I just hit the lottery, and I got to leave here soon? Yep. I want to stay as long as I possibly can because I'm not making this with whatever degree I have.
Will he be drafted?
I don't think so
he
at
won't
all.
be,
No.
He won't be drafted. I think.
You think he will be drafted?
No, I don't think he will be.
Okay.
I think he.
Greg said no, too.
I think he would be amazing in the CFL. In 3 downs. I think in those systems they've got to play.
I think he's got enough moxie or whatever, and I know it comes down to what they want, but I would think that he wouldn't be a bad guy to have on your roster. Now, I'm not saying because he's a competitor and all that, because everyone is, but I just feel like maybe he's just got enough of that in his neck where he might be
Baker Mayfield or something.
Mayfield is it's a great analogy.
He's just gritty.
Yeah, I never thought Baker Mayfield would be as good as he is in the NFL, and he's gotten better after he's had to take a couple of lumps. He was okay, first round overall pick, but Baker Mayfield's having a hell of a year for Tampa Bay. I never thought Kyler Murray would be as good as he is, although there's some ups and downs, but he just does it no matter what level. If there was a higher level in the NFL, he would do that there too. John Mateer, Texas kid, went from Little Elm High School. He has a 7-year figure from an unnamed team, according to Paul Sorensen, who covers Washington State. There's another one of these that is out there, with Mateer having a really nice year for Jake Dickert and Washington State.
So I don't know if you guys watched it or not, but I did a top 5 about a month ago on a Monday where I was giving out my awards, and Mateer had this ridiculous game, and I said he's going to win the most likely to be tampered with award. So that has actually come to pass. I would be willing to bet that of the schools, and it's not just he's got a 7-figure offer from a school. It's not just one school that's probably reached out and tampered with him. Like, there's no way that it's just one. I would say that of the schools that have tampered with him, the 3 of us here on this dais, 2 of our schools would be likely to be in that list.
Yeah, because Nebraska, even though they're about
they got
to
Raiola.
they have Raiola.
But,
they're about to go into oblivion again this year. But
Look, and here's the other thing I'm willing to bet, that there might be a competition for that offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, between Oklahoma and Florida State and some other schools. He will be very, very sought after. And if Ben Arbuckle can go somewhere, I would not be surprised to see John Mateer follow.
Yeah, there's a chance. That could be a package deal like they did back in the day.
Yeah, I don't know what the future holds for Oklahoma at quarterback. I have no earthly idea of
I don't think they do
what
either.
Jackson Arnold's going to do, or what they decide to do with Jackson Arnold, or whatever. Obviously Hawkins as well, but it's not good this year. I don't think they have to worry about I guess Arnold, You know what? Arnold and Hawkins might both still try to get poached by somebody. I could see somebody sliding in and going like, that situation doesn't look that great. You have some talent. We could take advantage of that. Not to the level of the other guys that we've mentioned so far. Although Arnold, a prize recruit, wouldn't surprise me if some people want to see if the grass is greener with him. But, yeah, I have no idea ultimately what happens with that room. But if things were to open up, then, yeah, Oklahoma and a bunch of others would be lining up for Mateer and any other number of the line that's starting to form now. But for him in particular, I'm not surprised. He's had a really great year at Washington State. He's not the greatest thrower on earth, but he is a hell of a dual threat, and he can sling it around, don't get me wrong, but he's a heck of a runner as well. He's had an amazing season, so I'm happy for him that he's getting this attention. I'm also not so happy for Washington State because this suddenly turns into, hey, this is awesome. Oh, wait, now the rest of the month we've got to sit here and worry about our quarterback getting poached and what the future looks like, and they've already been through hell in a handbasket the last 2 years anyways. So that part of it sucks, but I'm not surprised at all that he's one of those guys getting 7 figures tossed about. I mean, if he's getting $1 million offer, then I don't think it's crazy to think that the number one recruit in the entire country is getting 10 million offers from
$2.5 million on average a year. Yeah,
desperate as hell, Michigan. And LSU, who is sitting there with a coach who's about to be as desperate as you could possibly imagine. So millions in college quarterbacks is just going to go hand in hand and become a regular story, and it already sort of has.
All right, so we have a lot of you who are incredibly loyal to what we do, whether you watch us and you participate, whether it's in the chat or through various ways, the text line too. But Diane Ferrero from Alaska has been watching us from pretty much day one. She sent me this email. She said, my motivation on a couple of games down the stretch. She placed several multi-team will make the college football playoff parlays that are lining up for her to make a little bit of cash, maybe Bryce Underwood cash. Teams that she said would make it: Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Miami, Notre Dame, and Colorado. She loves Colorado. She's a Colorado fan. She sends me notes about Colorado occasionally. She goes, I need Georgia to beat Tennessee. She needs Notre Dame to beat Navy. That's when I told her I'm not going to listen to her anymore because the midshipmen are my second favorite team. Needs Texas to beat A&M. Oh. And then, of course, they need Colorado. She needs Colorado to win the Big 12. She has numerous parlays. And if you look at that list, I mean, there's a couple you could hit and miss, but she did go with Colorado. That's her team. How about that?
She's got a pretty good little list
my
there.
Goodness,
That's nice. Yeah.
So there we are with that. She also is the one that brought up, and we've brought this up before, about the 4 conference champions. People think that means the 4 autonomy 4 or whatever the hell they're called, the ACC, the SEC, Big Ten, and also the Big 12. And I brought that up earlier, and that's not necessarily, it's not the case, because Boise State or someone like that can still ruin that if they were to keep winning and somebody was to blank the bet. Especially in the Big 12 and or possibly in the ACC. She goes, why Colorado wants BYU to go undefeated? My theory, Colorado will move up a few spots in the rankings if they continue to win out. That's the case. But so will Boise State and Army. So when Colorado wins the Big 12 championship, we want to nick off all the various highly ranked teams that can assure that the Big 12 has not only an automatic bid, but also the possibility of more than one team in the college football rankings.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like she's got a lot of fun stuff in play there, and some good possibilities on hitting on some money, and good call on Colorado. They're right here in the mix. They're in control of their own destiny, and I'm very interested in the scenario where BYU wins out and then loses to Colorado, who wins out in the Big 12 championship game. I'm very interested in how the College Football Playoff Committee would handle that. How would you handle 12-1 BYU, who just lost? I guess it would matter. Did you get beat by 30 in Arlington, or did you get beat by 3 at the end of the game as Mata hits a field goal or something? But even still, I know if they were in 2 other leagues, they would be in, and it wouldn't even be a question mark of like, hey, you went 12-0 in the regular season. You only lost your conference championship game. Tell me that's not an automatic berth if you're in the Big Ten or the SEC.
Oh.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
But in the Big 12, that's somehow, for some people, in doubt of, I don't know. That's insane to me. That is absolutely insane. And what's wrong with the system when you're going, like, I don't know, 12-1 and you lost the conference championship. I don't know if that deserves one of 12 spots in the playoff. Like, that is absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
So that's the scenario to me that is of the most potential interest to really squeeze two teams in, because it's really the only scenario where that happens for the Big 12. It's the only one where that's probably going to happen. I guess K-State could take Colorado's place seemingly, but I don't know that there's really a whole lot of momentum behind K-State. But, yeah, I mean, if they were to go win the Big 12 and they're the Big 12 champion, would BYU get knocked, though? Because I don't know. That's why I think it'd be interesting, and that would be a potential way to get two in there, even though two seemingly feels like it's off the table right now. And obviously that would be tremendous for Colorado and also for Diane's pocketbook. So
we want you to win, Diane. No matter what all those results might mean, good for you to have all that out there, and good luck to Colorado. And who they are is they have to take care of business week to week, in Kansas coming into town. BYU's overall schedule.
They've got Utah.
Utah's coming in. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Kansas plays BYU.
Big noon kickoff is there. They have two really top 20 wins, BYU. SMU, who's now back inside the top 15, who they beat, although when they did beat them, they weren't. And then, of course, they had the win against Kansas State. They mauled the Wildcats 38-9.